Hey, Mark.
Hey, Elaine.
Are you going to start the podcast by telling everyone how many weeks it is until WrestleMania?
No.
Because that's what happens in my day-to-day life, so, why shouldn't everyone else join in?
It's 8 weeks.
There we go. 8 weeks to WrestleMania in Los Angeles.
But we potentially have a main event now, so that's exciting.
Sorry, we? What's I got really confused. We have a what? What?
Well, I assume you'll be watching at home.
Oh, of course I will, yes.
Stopping up live and
All night, yes.
on the WWE Network.
Messaging you the whole way through it.
I won't be answering because I'll be at the WrestleMania.
Thanks. So you and others at the event
Potentially have a main event.
I don't really know what that means.
Right.
Explain to me.
So you understand, there are matches that are taking place there.
Yeah.
And there is, one that is, sold as being, the biggest match.
The end game.
I mean, I wouldn't call it the end game. It's just the final
But
match.
the final match. Yeah, the
main
end
event.
Right. Oh, okay. Right. Well, sometimes the main event is, in the middle. I've noticed this before with, sometimes with, boxing or UFC, they have, the biggest event at a time where everyone's watching, and then they have other matches afterwards. But for wrestling, the main event is the one at the end.
Do you want to know why that is?
Yeah, go on.
Because in boxing and UFC, they don't know how long that's going to go on for. Right. So they will leave, an hour left at the end, and if it's a quick one, then they'll, bring out the jobbers.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Stuff. Whereas in wrestling, you tend to know how long it's going to run.
Well, you know what's going to happen, don't you? Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't.
Wiggle, wiggle.
People do. People who run it. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes.
And I know Roman Reigns because you wander around the house shouting, "Acknowledge me," which apparently is his... What would you call that? It's his phrase? Yeah, his catchphrase. Yeah. You did that the other morning. Was it really early doors? I'd got up with Blake.
Yes.
And at our ludicrously early time.
It was Saturday morning.
That was it.
Blake woke up at 6:30.
Lovely.
You got up with him, and I said, I'm going to stop in bed. But what I did was I grabbed my tablet and watched SmackDown. And then I came down to relieve you of your duties so that you could go back to bed. And as I was walking down the stairs, I said, "Acknowledge me." And you looked like you were about to leave.
Yeah, divorce. Yes. So I know Roman Reigns because he's the tribal chief.
Yes.
Am I right?
My tribal chief.
Okay, of course, yes. And you talked the other day about becoming part of the tribe or something. You were talking about how if you were the tribal chief...
I don't think this paints me in a good light.
No, I'm thinking, should I actually go into this? But yeah, you were very excited about... There's a group of people, aren't there?
That's
what I'm trying to get to.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a group of people. And Roman Reigns is the king.
Head of the table.
That's it. And I didn't know that. And you were talking about that you were taking the mick, really, and just sort of saying, you could be part of the gang.
I don't quite remember that, but it sounds like something I'd say.
So... Are you on... This is where I'm leading to. Are you on his side then, and not on the side of Cody Rhodes, who I know, because I know you're going to ask me this question, I know already that he is the son of Dusty Rhodes.
That's right.
Who used to wear, a bit of an all-in-one outfit, from what I recall. Did he have very blonde hair? And he wore, almost like a little baby's... a baby grow type of... I'm doing, a stretching...
It's not like a baby grow.
It's like a...
It's like a gymnast leotard.
Like a leotard,
but he was a larger man.
Yeah.
He was a son of a plumber.
And is that a euphemism or...
No. It was not, because he was a big rival of Ric Flair during the 80s.
Right.
And Ric Flair was this jet plane flying, he's got, limousine riding.
He has big furs.
Yes.
And, yeah.
Whereas Dusty Rhodes was sort of the common man, the son of a plumber.
Right, okay.
And then when he moved to WWF, as it was then at the end of his career, he'd been kind of the head of WCW and the NWA. So the theory is that Vince McMahon tried to humiliate him by putting him in yellow polka dots and
So anyway, welcome to Elaine and Mark's wrestling podcast.
Yeah. So to answer your question, who am I supporting? Well, this is why I'm saying potentially we have a main event, because they've got themselves a bit of a problem in that they've done such a good job in doing a different storyline that everyone kind of wants Sami Zayn to be fighting for the title at WrestleMania.
Okay.
And Sami Zayn is genuinely my favourite wrestler.
You've said that for quite a long time, actually, haven't you?
Yeah.
It's not just popped in.
When I first got back into wrestling, like, I watched the TV show and there was this guy, everyone was like big and muscly and like, rah, 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 I'm going to kill you. And then Sami Zayn is this like redhead Canadian, half Syrian, who was on telly in like a tweed blazer with matching cap and a Free Syria t-shirt underneath it. And I was like, that's not like anyone I've ever seen before. And he also just happens to be one of the best wrestlers in the world. And he's not, like, he's muscular, but he's skinny and I think since like Conor McGregor's come along and other people in UFC, we kind of realised that the people who we thought were massively muscle bound and Arnold Schwarzenegger-esque in the 80s aren't necessarily the hardest people on earth. And so Sami Zayn has been trying to join the bloodline for a year, so it's been a real long-term storyline. And this bloodline, like I say, Roman Reigns and his family, all Samoan. And they kind of humoured him, and one of the Uso brothers, who were like a tag team, really like him, but the other one hated him. And then they kind of accepted him in, and you were really happy for him. But then you're like, oh, are they just using him because he was like sacrificing himself for them and stuff like that? And then he turned on Roman Reigns at the end of the Royal Rumble because Roman Reigns wanted him to hit Kevin Owens, who is his best friend, with a chair. And
you don't want to go hitting your best friend with a chair.
Oh my god, they nearly broke the mics. Like the crowd pop was that big. Mm-hmm. So he is fighting Roman Reigns in between for the world title. Okay,
but you're saying that the WWE Massive would much prefer Roman Reigns to be fighting Sami Zayn rather than Cody Rhodes. Is that
yes? I think this is a better built-up storyline. You know, Cody Rhodes is like it should be a big deal for him to be fighting for the title because he went off. He set up his own company. He's now come back to WWE, but I think everyone just loves Sami Zayn because he is the ultimate underdog. So like it had kind of It depends on what, because we've done this before. Like 10 years ago, Daniel Bryan, who you
I know Daniel Bryan, yeah,
kind of caught fire in about the same time.
He had a beard as well. They
had to change the main event of WrestleMania to put him in there and give him the title. So the people are speculating, should they do that? The whole plan all year has been, since Cody Rhodes came back at last WrestleMania, has been for him to headline this WrestleMania. But yeah, the other alternative is Roman Reigns actually holds two versions of the world title. So does he defend it twice? Once against Sami, once against...
So if you haven't switched off yet, lovely listeners, just be prepared for this to be the next 8 weeks. And then also, once Mark comes back as well, because then we'll have to digest the whole of WrestleMania on the podcast.
I don't think that's the case. I think once I'll be back, I'll be like, right, that's out my system.
I do wonder that as well. And we talked about that the other day when we were sort of having a walk, back. Didn't we? We were like, when you get really into something, and actually I've been doing a lot of research into people who have like special interests, and both you and I have really quite intense special interests.
Yeah.
And often you get to a point where you've exhausted that interest and you have to then pause it for a while. And this has happened before with wrestling for you, where you've just gone, right, I've had that now, I've had that in my brain, I'm now going to move on to something else.
It's already at it now, because like there are shows on at like when I'm in LA where I'm just like, so the music equivalent would be if it was the 70s and you were in London and down like 5 minutes walk down the road there was David Bowie and the Jackson 5 and the Four Tops and Fleetwood Mac playing, and you're like, nah, I'm off to another gig tomorrow. I'm off to see the Nolans.
What a choice.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah. It's already, there's only so much wrestling you can go see.
Yeah. And so, I suppose you're going to see the absolute pinnacle of wrestling, isn't it? Because this is I know you call the main, the event that you're going to see the main event, but to me this is what would you call it? The sort of the event that caps all of the like this annual pilgrimage that people make.
But yes and no. I mean, like, there will be... WrestleMania may very well be the worst card that's put on in that thing this weekend, because WrestleMania is the big gimmicky thing. You know, like, is what's better? Like, more people watch EastEnders than watch Happy Valley. Spoilers for what we're about to talk about. that doesn't mean that EastEnders is better.
Yeah,
but
it's more popular.
There is a big, like, if EastEnders did a big thing, then for a soap fan that would be bigger than that's how I would look at it. Yeah. But yeah, you don't get 70,000 going to see Happy Valley, so
you don't. Although, just to let everyone know, we are recording this just before the last episode of Happy Valley is live on BBC. And we're going to have to keep an eye on the time because I want to make sure that I can watch it live with everyone else. So I wouldn't be surprised if these were the best viewing figures that the BBC's had for some time.
Yeah,
Don't know whether it's quite going to reach,
Should we talk about TV?
Yeah, I was thinking that. I think, how are we going to segue into television? It's been a while since we've done the podcast. We've had all sorts of things going on, haven't we? So yeah, just to apologise a little bit because we normally try to get an episode out every couple of weeks, don't we, and try and cover.
Yeah.
And we've watched lots of different things which we're not going to talk about on this week's pod, but we've had all sorts of illnesses, we've had all sorts of stuff on with work, I
couldn't speak for 2 weeks.
Yeah, Mark couldn't speak for 2 weeks, properly, you had to take yourself off into the spare bedroom, and just because you couldn't breathe properly because it was just so bad. And then I've had a load of stuff on at work, and then also because he likes to get involved, our son then decided to not sleep properly for a while. So yeah, it's been really challenging this last few weeks for all sorts of reasons. And we did want to do the because obviously the podcast gives us life and it gives us relaxation as well, but it just didn't work. So yeah, thank you to everyone who got in touch when I put a thing out on our socials saying we haven't gone away, because you do get that sometimes with podcasts, that we've talked about this before. There's pod fade, where podcasts you really like, they just disappear, or the episodes get smaller and smaller. I've got a couple that are still in my podcasting app. One day I kind of think they might come back, and I know full well they haven't, because the people in them have moved on to other things, and I can see even the hosts, I can see they're not really talking to each other anymore, but I remain in hope that it might just come back. And I didn't want that to happen to us. So yeah, I put something out to say, don't worry, we are coming back. We've had all sorts of things. And yeah, we had some really nice messages. So yeah, thanks everyone for making us feel wanted.
And I guess people will just never know what my opinions on Matilda and The Man Called Otto were. But,
or Spectre for me, because I had another lovely true crime documentary about Phil Spector that I watched. But
I thought you meant
not gonna cover that.
Right,
not the James Bond film.
No.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna. So yeah, the top and bottom of it is loads of stuff that we've seen we're not going to cover. We saw Glass Onion, we're not going to cover that unless anyone specifically wants us to come back and do sort of an extra episode. Please let us know, because we're more than happy to do it. We now feel okay. We're relatively all right. So, if you do want us to cover those things, we can do a one-off. But we thought just for now, so that we're not rehearsing old stuff, we'll try and keep it up to date. So we are going to cover, in TV, we're going to do Happy Valley, and The Last of Us.
Yeah.
And then in film, we're going to do...
Knock at the Cabin.
I want to call it Cabin in the Woods the whole time. Knock at the Cabin and Plane.
Yes.
So hopefully brief and sparky, but up to date.
Sarah Lancashire's walking down the path. Come on, it's time to...
I know, yeah. TV.
I don't know what happens.
Watching television. Right, so
for all my jokes, I don't know anything about Happy Valley.
You don't know anything about Happy Valley, do you? Well, what do you know? Let's start off with what you do know.
So I know it's set in West Yorkshire.
Yeah, lovely.
Is it like Huddersfield way?
I haven't got a clue, because I don't really know West Yorkshire very well.
I used to live in Huddersfield.
I went to university there. When I was getting ready for the podcast and reminding myself of what people were describing Happy Valley as, I think I saw something called West Cold or Calder Valley.
Oh,
do you know that?
So, yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
So
yeah.
That's,
it looks beautiful.
That's kind of around, Huddersfield.
When
the
you
River
were up on the
Calder,
peaks.
Yeah. So, I mean,
so
I used
to
live
it's
in
there?
I used to live in the Calder Valley. I know that it's set in a valley. I know that the other part of the name is somewhat of a lie, as much as Naked Lunch or...
Oh, were you upset by that?
Yeah, I missed out, definitely. Yeah, two of my favourite things didn't appear on screen. But yeah, you first told me about this a couple of years ago and said, season 3's coming. And I was like, well, when's it coming? And I was like, if it's coming, then I'll probably wait until it's been on to watch it. And then 2 years passed of pandemic, and I didn't, and so I've just kind of put off going into it. But so tell me about it.
Yeah, so as you say, Sarah Lancashire is Catherine Kaywood, who is a police officer. She's a grandma. She's got a young, this is in season 1. He's a bit grown up now. She's got a young grandson. Her daughter has taken her own life. She has a son of her own that she has some relationship issues with. And when we meet her in season 1, she is with her sister who has drug and alcohol issues, or at least has had, is recovering at that point, and her marriage has had difficulties. If not, I think she's split up with her husband at that point in time. You can see I'm struggling to try and remember where we were in season 1 because I'm so into season 3 at the moment. And actually, it really shows you the complexity of the show and the complexity of the characters, because it is really hard for me to kind of have this linear response and give you like, well, these are the facts, because things move so quickly in this show, and ideas that you think you have about the characters very swiftly get taken away and moved. And that is the complexity of Sally Wainwright's writing and the realism of her writing as well. And you're absolutely right to say this idea of Happy Valley is it's a play on what actually is going on there, because Kaywood is dealing as a police officer with the petty criminals, but also people who are involved in some real violence. And at the centre of all of this is her grandson's biological father, who is he will be known as one of the greatest villains, I think, Tommy Lee Royce. And Tommy Lee Royce is played by James Norton, who obviously is incredibly good looking, but is so menacing in this storyline and in this program. I think it's really made a name for James Norton, and there are various scenes of him sort of dressed up and maybe with his and looking more like James Norton would in real life. And part of me was thinking, God, he would make a good Bond. There's been a lot of that.
Third favourite, isn't he now?
Yeah. But it's terrible because he is so menacing. He does some awful, truly, truly devastatingly awful things. He's an awful piece of work. But the beauty of this show is that you watch those characters and you're with them all the way through. And I think that's why so many people have got really into this show in season 3. You can follow everything all the way through from season 1. You can see the relationship turns, you can see people growing up, you can see the young lad, the grandson, growing up before your very eyes. It's the same actor that's been used all the way through, and you have certain time jumps, but it's just so well realized. I'm gonna sort of go into the negative a little bit, because I think there's been some of the reviewing around Happy Valley has essentially placed it on a pedestal.
Yeah.
To be the best thing that has ever been on television. Now, I'm not saying that it's not that. I would say, I would put it absolutely right up in the sky. But there are certain plot points that I have no interest in, that I think take away from some of the power of the other storylines, and sometimes where it becomes a little bit more fanciful. But I do wonder whether this is a show that actually, when we sort of pick it apart, is more heightened, where it has that realism, but there's also that sense of we're not quite in the world as we know it, and it sort of sometimes battles, between that domestic kitchen sink drama and things that just go a little bit beyond where you can quite believe they're going to be. So I'm often conflicted with it because of those elements. That said, I have sat 9 o'clock on a Sunday, stuck to the sofa watching the episode, hand over my mouth at times, heart racing, really getting into it. And I've already seen some early reviews, and they're saying that the landing, absolutely, is there for this last episode. So I'm just looking forward to going on the ride. And Sarah Lancashire, I mean, it's really part of me just feels like Sarah Lancashire gets all the plaudits, and she absolutely should do, but the surrounding characters, Con O'Neill, Siobhan Finneran, the other people who are there with her and have been all the way through the different series. There isn't a weak link in this show, and while she is the centre, I think it really gives it really support, but you've got to have that support around your central performance, otherwise it just becomes that central performance and everything else is just not quite there. Like I say, there isn't a weak link, they're all there together. It is an ensemble piece with her at the centre. I would really recommend that you try and avoid as much about this as possible, because I think this is going to absolutely be a denouement.
Well, that's why I've not watched it so far, because it's so easy. Like, once you start watching it, then you pick up references of things that happen in later on.
But I think it really, really pays off to go back to it, because there were things I cannot remember about season 1, season 2, that others that were talking about it online and the podcasts that I listened to, but like, oh, what about this? What about that? It really, really, the discourse around this at the moment is really reminding me of Line of Duty. I think it's better than Line of Duty in many ways, especially the last series of Line of Duty, which I think had some major problems. I don't think it is that show, but it's really reminding me that the fact everyone's really getting into it, and that 9 o'clock on a Sunday, it really gives me those vibes again, and that's quite exciting to have that shared experience.
I've never forgiven Sarah Lancashire for what she did to Kelly Watts.
No. She's such a phenomenal actress. She's so and the dialogue in this show is so difficult. I was listening to someone who directs the Happy Valley, and they were saying how when they first get the scripts, they're just like, how are we going to do this? How, it's so sharp, it's so quick, it's so the way that people speak to each other. Especially there are certain scenes where people are talking over each other, or there's two.
You'll enjoy that.
Yeah, I know. There are two. It's so difficult to explain, but essentially you'd be saying something about putting the bins out, and I'm still talking about finishing something off about Blake's educational stuff. And yet we're not talking. Yeah, I know.
I'm looking forward to catching
but we're not talking over each other. We're just saying the way, and you're saying, "Oh, well, the bin goes out on Tuesday." I'll go, and yes, and when we get that letter, it's that sort of, we're both on different wavelengths, but we're talking to each other, and then you pick up it. Have you put the bin out? It's so northern and so recognisable. I can't go on about it enough, but yeah.
Because we're doing 2 minutes on this.
We're doing 2 minutes, yeah. Well, let's maybe be quiet. Right, what else are we doing in telly? Are we doing The Last of Us?
The Last of Us. So the latest big franchise to come on HBO and Sky Atlantic in the UK. This is an adaptation of a PlayStation.
Is it PlayStation?
Game. Yeah, it's a PlayStation game. That's why I've not
Really?
played it. Yeah.
I didn't think it was a PlayStation.
What do you think it was?
I don't know. I'm now thinking, what was it?
What else would it be?
I kind of associate PlayStations with like kids games, but obviously I'm just wrong. Yeah.
I've got an Xbox, so I can't play it, which is really annoying because this is the game that came out, I think it's 2016, the first game came out, and everyone was saying this has a plot to rival any major motion picture. So this is the big adaptation. You have been massively into this. I haven't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I'm ahead of you.
And I can tell you exactly why.
Is it The Walking Dead?
No. Well, yeah. So I was unwell. I started watching it, and the first part of the first series. This is a post-apocalyptic. There is some kind of event which spreads around. Spreads
it's
to
a
humans.
pandemic, essentially.
Pandemic, yeah. And so the first part of the first episode, we see people as this news is breaking, and I was like, this is amazing. It reminded me of Cloverfield, like the fact that the news was being revealed to them, and there is a big sort of I don't know if it's necessarily one shot, but we're following them in real time point of view in a car.
Yes, very game footage, yeah.
And it was absolutely, like, I was on the edge of my seat, and then it comes 20 years later, and we are in hidden societies, and, like, big refuges, and we see, like, oh, there's some sneaky dealings going on. And I tried to watch this 3 times, and each time fell asleep.
Okay.
Now, I was unwell, so that's probably why. But I've really, really searched as to why this isn't working for me. And I think it's just because I am so fucking bored of underground societies in a post-apocalyptic world, having sat through 11 seasons of The Walking Dead and watching them go absolutely nowhere. That, like, it's just almost like I just switch off whenever I see them now. It's like Pavlov's dog bells ringing somewhere, and I'm drooling and drooling in my sleep in this case. I've finished the first episode, and obviously there are exciting events, and I am probably going to watch the second episode while you're watching Happy Valley.
I think you need to do that. If you get to the first episode and you're thinking, oh, I'm not quite sure. I've actually listened to a number of other podcasts around this, funnily enough, and actually the Custard TV podcast did a really, really good review of it, and some of the people on the Custard were saying, oh, we didn't quite feel, we weren't quite feeling it. And I can't remember who it was, unfortunately, but someone on the podcast said, look, if you're feeling that way, get to episode 2. And it was a shame, I think they said, it was a shame that the first episode was so long that you probably wouldn't think of going to the second episode to give that, because actually if you put the first and the second together, that might have, I think once you get to the second episode, so much more is revealed. It doesn't become, I know what you're feeling it's going to be. I think more of the world is revealed to you. It's not just going to be this, oh, well, we're going to be in a house for,
one of the first seasons,
is going to come in.
One of the first scenes is someone getting tortured in, like, a room, and in my mind, I've seen this about 3 times now. It's a room that's kind of like a basement, and the windows are, like, up at
that's right,
up at, like, ceiling level and things like that. Literally every fucking episode of The Walking Dead, there would be something similar to that.
There isn't. You get much more of a sense of the work. It propels itself much more, and you will have heard, and people, listening will also have heard, because this has been major in sort of telly news at the minute. You will have heard about episode 3, which is a phenomenal piece of television. And even if I think you don't go any further than episode 3, even if you just get to episode 3 and you think, actually, this isn't for me, I think you should watch episode 3 as a piece of beautiful television with themes that I just haven't seen before, or at least haven't seen done well before, with authenticity, with pure emotion, and plot points that just absolutely took my breath away, because I wasn't expecting things to go that way. I would, I think people should actually just watch episode 3, even if they don't care about the show, watch episode 3 just to have that in your life. So yeah, I really hope you get there, even just to see it, so that you can then become part of this conversation.
I'm actually interested in it. I'm just like I said, not been well.
Yeah.
And there is that thing of, like, that like you said, an hour and a half pilot. What are you saying? Like, I'm like, an hour and a half's like a good movie length, but you're like, you like, that's a high entry fee for me.
Well, it was going to end at that halfway through, at the sort of the past. And then the second episode was going to start in the present day. But somebody came, the producers, and said, it's just too, no one's going to come back. Whereas I didn't feel that. I would have thought, oh, that's interesting because of the timescales as well that you've got to invest in it.
Shall we talk about some films?
Let's do some films.
Saturday night at the movies. Who cares what picture you see? When you're with your baby, let's roll in the balcony.
So last weekend, I decided I was going to go to the cinema and catch up on some of the Oscar films that I've not seen. So there were options where like go see Tar, which I've still not seen.
Yeah.
Go see Babylon,
Yes.
which I cannot think about without thinking of the Ali G song. You turn me on with your big Babylons. Different times, weren't there?
Totally different times.
This is The Fableman, obviously Spielberg. And in the end, I thought, fuck it, I'm off to see Plane.
Of course you are.
Because that was the sort of mood I was in.
Now, Plane has Gerard Butler in, and there's a big poster on the side of buses with Gerard Butler and the word plane, and that's all I know about this film. That is
really?
it. Yeah, genuinely, I know nothing. I'm presuming there's an aeroplane in it somewhere, but who knows?
That'd be weird if there wasn't, wouldn't
Yeah,
there?
yeah. Is it Gerard?
It's not Naked Lunch.
I'm sad. Is it Gerard Butler being action hero, saving people? Is it Air Force One? Is it that sort of? Is it a 90s actioner? It makes me feel of a 90s actioner.
So if I tell you that Gerard Butler is a pilot,
Excellent.
he needs to get home to his daughter, who he's not seen for a little while, to spend New Year's Eve with her.
Oh my god. Right. Why is this reminding me of Die Hard?
Oh yeah. He is flying his plane from Singapore to... I can't even remember where.
Another place.
Doesn't matter where, does it?
No.
And then needs to just make this little run,
Yeah.
and then he can get on with his life. Meet his daughter in Hawaii for New Year, because obviously he's the other side of the international date line. So yeah, you don't understand.
No,
time,
I
do
don't
you?
understand. No, I'm just shrugging my shoulders because my head doesn't comprehend.
Two things happen as part of like the checks before, like, the air traffic control, or like the routing guy, who I like the plane. The film indicates is part of the airline, says there's this big storm coming here, but by the time you're there, like it'll be gone. Just go through it. He's like, but look, we go there, avoid it automatic. Like, nah, that's going to be like $13,000 in fuel bills, that extra. Mm-hmm. And the FBI come on and say, or CIA, whatever, come and say, oh, we've got a prisoner that's doing a prisoner transfer.
Oh, it's Con Air.
It's Mike Coulter.
Who's Mike Coulter?
Luke Cage.
Oh, right, okay. Right, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you spot what happens?
Yes.
I bet you can't, actually.
Oh, okay. So I'm presuming, obviously, you don't want to go into spoilers, but I'm presuming
this is all from the trailer.
The weather is bad.
Weather's bad.
And Mike is bad.
Oh,
is he?
No,
oh,
right.
Okay.
Weather's bad. They need to make an emergency landing. And they land on an island which is run by like baddies, essentially. They land on Baddie Island, which is unable to be visited by any government or anything like that.
Right.
Who want to take all their money and send them for
aeroplane.
ransom, and and the line from the thing is, I don't care what you've done. I need to get my passengers home.
God.
Or something along those lines.
Yeah, okay, I get the point.
This is so much fun. I don't even care. I don't even care if anyone judges me for this. This is so much fun. It's done very, very well. You've got Gerard Butler, who's playing a character called Brodie Torrance. I mean,
oh my
that
god,
just
that's
tells you.
amazing.
Yeah.
Brodie Torrance. So you've got Brodie from Jaws and Torrance. I'm thinking like The Shining.
I'd never made that connection, but yeah.
Well, someone's been like, film names.
Mike Coulter is Louis Gaspar.
Of course he is.
You've then got, as a kind of parallel to all these activities, you've also got, like, back in New York or LA or wherever this airline's based, you've got, like, the executives in this control room with a Winston the Wolf type figure that comes in.
Oh, really?
And comes in and like telling people, right, I need this person. You're not going to like it. Send the solicitors out the room because I'm getting like I'm getting the mercenaries to go in and help them.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is, the things that I really like about this. Obviously, it's fun. It's fun
It knows
watching
what
people
it is.
shoot people. It's fun watching people. There's a
I
really.
don't think it is fun watching people shoot people. But can we qualify that and say in the context
yes.
of this film and entertainment? Yeah.
It's fun watching Gerard Butler. There is a really interesting, like, almost like real-time fight scene where, like, he's doing hand-to-hand combat with this guy, and it's not shot like a typical Western fight would be. It almost feels like you're watching actually two people have a little ruck about it. But then you've also got these guys trying to work out how to get these people home, and it's complete, like, if Con Air obviously has a big scene where there's people stood around, but they seem to know what's going on in that, whereas these people have no idea where these people are.
Okay.
There've been lost signals about where it is, so it could be anywhere in this. And what do you do? How do you prep people?
Yeah.
Even the beginning of the film, like, you see, like, them prepping for takeoff, and it's kind of weird, like, just nice to see, like, what a pilot actually does. I don't know if this is actually what pilots do when they do, but the little processes that they go through and the meticulous processes, and God, will that pay off later on? Like, when they're making sure that the plane's absolutely perfect. And this is a lot of fun. Like, it's a Friday night, have a couple of beers, get a pizza, and just enjoy, like, the cheesy dialogue, see bad guys get shot, see good guys also get shot, but somehow manage to get through it. Yeah, this is a lot of fun, and
Who's the director? Do you know?
So it's Jean-Francois Richer, who he's done a lot of, well, you may be able to tell he's a French director. He did the Vincent Cassel films, Marine.
Okay.
Which were out. I've had them on my list to watch a long time ago.
I love Vincent Cassel.
But yeah, this appears to be one of his, like, first English language films, which I've not actually seen. He's done a Mel Gibson film, but yeah, we'll forgive him for that.
Not talk about that.
Yeah, we don't talk about Gibson. But yeah, a lot of fun, and you could do far worse than Friday night.
That sounds
watching
really,
this.
really fun, because I love those. I love Air Force One. I love The Fugitive, and I'm not saying it's on that level of just naming Harrison Ford films out.
Yes.
But I love those 90s
Patriot
actioners.
Games.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
What Lies Beneath.
No, I don't like What Lies Beneath. We all know why. We don't deal with that. Anything spectral. But yeah, I love that sort of this sounds like. Am I along the right lines of sort of like 90s actioner? Yeah,
It's
cool.
it's an 90s actioner. Yeah,
Lovely. Something very different then.
Yes. So we have both been to see separately.
Yeah, obviously.
Knock at the Cabin.
Knock at the Cabin. And as I said earlier, I so want to call this Cabin at the Woods, because I think the book on which Knock at the Cabin was based is something like The Cabin at the End of the World, or The Cabin in the Woods at the End of the World, or so.
It's not Cabin.
It's not a Cabin in the Woods. I just want to put in the woods, but essentially,
Into the Woods.
Essentially it is a cabin in the woods is the main setting. It's not, that's not giving anything away. And this is an M. Night Shyamalan film, his latest, because I think people don't realise that I think there's this idea with Shyamalan that he sort of did Sixth Sense and Signs of the Village, and then he sort of went away. Lady in the Water, never forget. But he's been quite prolific. He did Old, he did Glass, he did that other one that name escapes me, the one where people go and visit their grandparents. I can't remember what that one was called.
Oh, The Visit. I've not seen The Visit.
Makes sense. So he's been quite prolific recently. He has been churning them out.
So I think what happened was he did The Happening. Bad film. He did The Last Airbender.
Oh yes, of course.
Appalling film. He did After Earth, which I haven't seen.
Oh, I haven't seen that either, but I have
You know
no
which one that is,
desire.
don't
Yeah,
you?
the Will Smith one.
Yeah.
I have no desire to see that.
And then had largely like a bit of a renaissance with The Visit. Kind of, I think it was very low budget.
Very low budget, yeah. Small cast.
I think he was able to sort of almost fund it himself. Then Split, which
that's it. Yeah, Split
was obviously spoilers for Split, but a backdoor pilot for a sequel to a different film that he's made. Then Old, which I covered on this podcast.
You did.
I was
yeah.
not a fan of, and I'm not going to mention the V word during this review.
Okay.
Because I think that's been done to death.
Yeah, we have spoken about the village quite a lot.
Yeah. This let's go into the start. Let's go into the plot.
Yeah.
So this is Jonathan Groff and Ben Aldridge, a married couple, taking their daughter to a cabin in the woods.
In the woods. It's a very posh Airbnb.
Yes.
It's very posh. Like, imagine wall-to-wall, oak panelled libraries. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
The girl is playing outside, and Dave Bautista walks up to her, tries to make friends with her. Yeah. Says him and his 3 friends are coming to their cabin, and they have to make a decision which will affect the entire world. And I think probably leave the plot there, because that's as far as the trailer goes, and that's as much as I knew going into it. I don't know if you knew any more.
No, that's all I knew. I knew Dave Bautista was in it. I knew some of who his friends might be, and I knew that it was going to be very much centered on this family.
Yes.
In this cabin, and the things that these people will be saying to them, and the effect that might have on them.
Yeah.
And it looked to me like something that was quite like a thriller. It looked, the trailer itself, the use of music and sound was really quite affecting and quite terrifying, and it didn't look good. It didn't look good for the family. It really gave me the vibes of those sorts of home invasion sort of films.
Yeah.
That's what the trailer was giving me. So actually went into this feeling quite worried, because I had seen a review that said it was harrowing, and so I asked you just to let everyone know our process. You came home and I said to you, right, you have to let me know if this is harrowing in the way that I would understand harrowing. And we had a really interesting conversation, actually. It's interesting, but I think it was really interesting conversation about what one person's version of harrowing might be very different to someone else. So for me, children in peril or violence inflicted against children makes me very, very uncomfortable, and I try and avoid that as much as possible. Whereas for someone else, harrowing might be really blood, gore, violence, maybe suicide, those sorts of things could be real triggers for people, and certainly for me, things around birth I'm really, really conscious of. So when someone says harrowing, that sort of makes me go, oh right, what kind of harrowing are we dealing with here? And you very kindly came back, and without telling me anything about the film, I think just knowing me as a person, you said, I think you'll be able to cope with whatever this film throws at you. So that was really useful to know, actually.
Good.
Yeah, I think I'm going with that. But I think it's an interesting thing, isn't it? What one person would find to be really hardcore horror thriller, another person can withstand. And I suppose actually where I am going with this is, I did not feel scared in this film. I did not feel the horror and the harrowing that other reviews have, that word that they've used. I did not feel it was harrowing in many senses, actually. Did you feel that you were sort of on the edge of your seat, or feeling thrilled or horrified? Or
I feel I can't go really into this
really
without
hard,
going into
isn't it?
spoilers, because I want to keep as little as possible.
Yeah.
I don't think that this film has definite antagonists and protagonists, and at no real point did I feel that the protagonists were in danger. Mm-hmm. So that's where, apart from once you understand the format of the film, I never really felt the protagonists were going to be in danger, if that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Or direct danger. Never felt there was going to be sort of a jump scare of someone coming out. There is very tense moments in this film.
Absolutely. And you're not
a scene in the bathroom.
Yes.
Where you're not quite sure what's going to be round the corner.
And also things that are happening in front of you as well, where you are seeing the terror in people's eyes.
Yes.
I would say that you were seeing people react in a way that you think, whoa, like this acting was quite effective actually. And there's someone in particular who has to play very, very scared at some point. And I thought, wow, like you really are, like, I can really feel you're absolutely terrified. And Shyamalan's got this interesting directorial vision here, where particularly in this film, where he's doing lots of close-ups, he's doing lots of in-your-face close-ups or behind your shoulder, you know, but so much in the face, so much close-up that made this film feel very claustrophobic to me, and I really felt myself in the cabin and felt myself thinking about what I would do in this situation, which of course that's what it's wanting you to do, isn't it?
Yeah, this absolutely is in like the same, very different film, but it kind of reminded me in a little way of Indecent Proposal, whereby the film...
It's a very different film.
Yes, but the film does invite you to, like, if you were in this situation, what would you do? And
We've had that discussion before, haven't we?
I came into a real solid, like, I know exactly what I would do in this situation, and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, so what did you think of the film?
I really thought it was very good. I really enjoyed it as almost like a Twilight... What a Twilight... I've been trying... all the way home in the car, I've been thinking, why can't I think what this phrase is? But you know, like, Tales of the something or other, or... What is it? Do you know what it is? You're looking at me, like, with a smug face, like you know the answer and you don't...
Twilight Zone?
That's it! Oh, phew. I was like, Twilight Valley. Don't know, that's Happy Valley. Yeah, it feels like a Twilight Zone episode, like a slightly extended Twilight Zone episode, because it's so contained. It's got this one ideal, you know, this one idea in the middle of it. It's asking a moral question, and I enjoyed it. I just enjoyed playing with that idea of what would I do, who would I be most like in my viewpoint. Do I agree with the choices that characters are making? Do I am I believing what is happening on the screen? I wasn't a fan of the ending, but I do think, I feel like I'm a bit of a cliche, because I do think with these type of films, and it's not just M. Night Shyamalan's endings that, you know, have obviously got lots and lots of press in the past. I wanted something... I can't say anything about it, but it didn't quite work for me. If I say what I wanted, it gives away the ending. I wanted something different, and actually I've now subsequently gone and read the plotline of the book, because this takes a very, very different turn to the book on which it is based.
Okay.
And I you know, there have been questions about whether, if they'd stuck with the plotline of the book, whether that would have perhaps been more satisfactory. Okay. So yeah, it was a 4 out of 5 for me, because I just enjoyed the experience. The cinema was, deathly quiet, and to begin with, I had quite a boisterous cinema goers, you know, neighbours near me. People were on their phones, people were chatting through the trailers, like actually properly talking through the trailers.
Yeah.
And I did think, this is going to be... I was actually thinking, it's a good job I'm not really that bothered about this. Because if this was, for example, the new Indiana Jones, which I'm like quite emotionally attached to, I really want to go and see that film with other people who want to see it and enjoy it and have that experience. Whereas with this, if people were chatting through it, I wouldn't be quite so bothered. But actually, as soon as it started, because it starts very, very quickly, we go straight into the plot. You know, there's hardly any build-up. People were silent.
Yeah, you have Way outside, and she looks up, and Big Dave
Dave's there. Yeah. And Dave Bautista, I mean, we have to talk about him. I think he's wonderful. And I do think that he's been slightly underserved by some of the films that he's been in, not Guardians of the Galaxy, where I think his character, and I don't know whether this is a conscious choice, but he seems to be so neurodiverse. So he gives off the impression of someone who with autism in particular, and that character, I just love that. I love that character so much, and he makes total sense to me, like in what he says and the way that he sees the world. And so he has dialogue there, but it tends to be quite stilted. Then he was in things like Blade Runner 2049, and he said very little in that. Some of the other things that I've seen him in, he sort of like appears and looks very big and menacing, but he doesn't have that dialogue.
Well, the same in Spectre, isn't it? Was it Spectre?
Yeah. I think it was.
Yeah.
It was Spectre. He was just the muscle, really,
Yes.
and it's a bit Bond cliched. Here, you really get to see the acting come through. You know, there is so much in his performance, and you see one thing, you see the man and the physical, and then what comes out of his mouth and the way that he moves and the way that he presents himself is so different. And you're constantly thinking, who is this? But, you know, what is the real who is the real person? What am I seeing here? I thought he was wonderful.
I mean, there's incredible vulnerability from him all the way through this. And I think probably that coming through his Guardians of the Galaxy role as well. I think this film... Thanks for asking. I think this film is probably M. Night Shyamalan's best film since Unbreakable. Possibly even his best in Sixth Sense. I share your problems with the ending. I suspect I share your specific problems with the ending. And I would quite like us to do a little 5-minute spoiler thing just to sort of talk about it, because we're going to talk about it like once it's finished anyway, so we'll do it on there. But yeah, I think he's brilliant. I think the whole cast is really...
And obviously there's not many people in. There's Nikki Amuka Bird, who is British. I don't know if you know that she's British, because she has a brilliant accent in this. There is...
I don't know her.
She's been in lots of like British crime
she's
dramas.
I do know her.
There's Rupert Grint, who clearly, you know, people will know from Harry Potter, but we kind of got to move away from that. I know he's in Shyamalan's Servant, which is on Apple.
Oh, that makes sense.
And because that is a horror that I think involves kids, I've kept away from that. And then there's another girl, I think, is her name Abby Quinn, possibly, or Amy Quinn? She's
Abby Quinn.
Yeah, she... I thought she was like, there's not one person, and I think those performances of Groff and Aldridge are just beautiful. There is a beautiful scene sort of in a flashback later on, which this is not giving anything away. It's just a flashback, and there's a piece of dialogue about parenting, and I cried because it was so resonant to me and to you, and that idea of being a good parent. And I've really found myself getting very emotional about it. And there is obviously a through line through the film, which I think is, perhaps could have been drawn out a bit more. I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. Around the fact that they are gay men, they are married, and there's this idea that there's always been that sense of threat and that sense of danger because they cannot be their authentic selves in certain places because someone is going to come along and cause trouble for them.
Which I understand isn't in the original source novel.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
The source novel played it was totally as it just so happens that they are.
Okay.
Whereas this definitely, it plays into parts of the themes around the film. Which, you know, like, look, it's... I think it works well either way.
Yep.
It certainly added an element to the film. I'm interested to go and read the book. I can't imagine it's a long... It seems
I can't
like
either.
a short story.
Yeah. Well, it's a novel because I looked up that. I thought, is it a short story? But they do say it's a novel. But there's a lot more plot to it than what we see in this film.
Shall we talk spoilers?
Should we do some... Right.
If people are leaving us here, thank you very much for listening. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at The Honeymoon Pod. And if you'd like to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or a star rating on Spotify, we'd really appreciate it.
Spoilers from here on in. Here is your spoiler alert.
So,
should we just do the ending?
Yeah.
Let's not do an hour-long spoiler special.
I don't think I need to do an hour-long spoiler special.
Well, I've only got 15 minutes until Happy Valley, so yeah.
Okay, right. For me, the obvious themes around this are the sort of people who stand on the side of the road on our way home on a Friday night and wave placards about chemtrails. And because that is a regular occurrence for us. There is a group of people in Newcastle who will take to the streets and will stand to the side of the main commuter exit to the west. To the east end of the city and the east end suburbs.
Yep, very,
and
very busy.
We'll put things about COVID being a hoax.
And we'll stand right by your car with their yellow placard. And they've moved away. They were majorly talking about COVID and vaccinations, and now they have moved on to things like generally the media and names of people that I don't know.
Yes. People
and also
wanting to track you.
Yeah, people want to track you. So lots of conspiracy theory.
And I'm kind of torn between wanting to Google who these people are, like who these people who are wanting to track me are, and also not wanting to pay them the time.
Yeah. And they can be. I think it's quite scary at times, actually, when you're in a car with a child and people are. I know they just stood with their placards, but I sometimes find it quite, yeah, so there is that sense of...
I'm going to get political because I'm willing to say that, like, I'm willing to say that I think they are sad people who have found other people online and are grabbing onto...
Well, there is this sense of community, isn't it? Which is what the film plays into, this idea of they've met each other on a message board.
Yes.
And whilst they've all been having these visions, or have they? And then they've sort of said on this message board, oh, well, I've done this and I've done... It really... The thing that I really enjoyed about the film was the way that it peppered these ideas of, oh, actually, they just might be completely, very unwell and part of that sort of gang.
Yeah, and there is... And even when they are performing the self-sacrifices... Like, it's like, there was an earthquake, but that was 4 hours ago. So how is that anything to do with this?
And they keep looking at their watches all the time, and that isn't really explained later on. And they're showing things that especially the BBC thing about the pandemic in Edinburgh, apparently, or somewhere in Scotland. It says pre-recorded show.
Yeah.
Which doesn't happen on the
BBC News.
It just didn't seem to make any sense to me. But I was thinking, well, they've cut the phone lines. They've got things in, and obviously this is where the film is wanting you to see someone's piping that in, aren't they?
Yeah.
And show me it going on outside is what you kind of want to go, all right, I'm going to drive down the road and see these things. Or these are natural disasters. These are things that happened all the time. Very sadly, we have tsunamis and people die.
Yeah.
Very sadly, there are lightning strikes. And that's where the bit about the pandemic, the sort of the flu thing for the children, I think that was meant to be very emotional. But to be honest, I don't know whether I'm just massively traumatized, but given COVID, but also we've had a number of things in particularly in our country where children have been having something called like strep A, for example, and there has been this it has gone through many children, and our own, where we've been really, really worried about the effect, like, or a flu, or there's other things like bronchiolitis, and so I don't know whether I'm just so used to seeing children unwell in hospital that actually I didn't think, oh God, all the children are dying and they've all got this flu, because I see that in real life, and I don't know whether whether that is meant. What I'm trying to say is, when you see people's minds perhaps changing to go, oh wow, it is real. I at no point thought, oh wow, it's real, because I see that day to day. Which probably is a trauma response, but there we go.
I'm kind of with you on this. If we're doing the, like, what would you do in this case? I would absolutely in no way be sacrificing myself. I would be more than happy. I'll be happy to be wrong. If someone wants to put this on me, fuck them. Like, I'll walk the earth and I'll laugh at everyone else being dead while I'm alive. Like literally, I don't care. All the buildings can burn, and I will walk the scorched earth, because I'll be happy, because I'll have you and Blake, and we can have a laugh about, like, do you remember when we ended the earth?
When Dave Bautista came to our house,
yeah,
and we didn't believe it.
Yeah.
I might not go that far, but I did not see anything that would convince me. I didn't see anything that convinced, until perhaps the end, where I thought one of the most, like, not harrowing, but one of the things that I found most spooky was when they came out of the cabin, and at the end, in the sky, you see the aeroplane fall, and the footage of the aeroplanes falling from the sky, that I found terrifying. I really did. I thought, oh, that's the most affecting thing I've seen. And when you see one outside, it's almost like that bit in Signs where...
I mean, 8 weeks, that's all I'm saying.
Stop it. You cannot joke about
No,
that.
what I'm saying is 8 weeks, like, it's affecting me a lot more, because I'm going on a plane in 8 weeks.
Yeah, well, let's not make any jokes about that. Yeah, when...
That'll be on the news, won't it?
Stop it. It's not funny. When that bit in Signs where big spoilers for Signs here, which is probably 20 years old now, but anyway, big spoilers. But they're watching the telly and then everyone's going, there's aliens, and then suddenly an alien and there's this boom with the music and everything. That's what that gave me, that scene vibes where you see outside that there is actually a plane falling down. That was the point where I thought, oh, it's actually happening in the real world, because until then you've only ever seen it on TV in the cabin where nothing seems to be happening near this cabin. So I found that quite affecting.
Okay.
But I still wouldn't have thought, oh, the world is ending. I would have thought it's a terrorist incident, or there's something cyber related, or there's been a massive malfunction. I think I would have given it a bit more time before I'd gone, the world actually
typical
ended.
You, that.
Yeah, it is typical me. But I think also if you I've got this moral thing, isn't it? But this is why I thought I really enjoyed the film. If you think about all the things that happen in the world, if you listed all the wars, the famines, the awful violence against women and children, and the horrible things that go on in the world, you might already think you're in an apocalypse. If you listed all of those things that are happening now in the world, you would probably say, oh, we're in the apocalyptic times. And I think that's quite an interesting... I wish they'd maybe gone into that bit more. I think they did with one of them, because he says, I'm a human rights lawyer, I see these terrible things happening, But anyway, so the ending for you said something quite specific that you didn't...
So, my problem with it is, I don't want the cranks who met online to be right. And that is the way that the film presents itself at the end.
Yeah.
And it was quite obvious that was going to be the case, because halfway through the film you're like, we're not just going to walk outside and go, yep, that was it. Yeah. Nothing's wrong. Everything's fine.
Nothing's happened.
Yeah, oh look, everything's still,
Or I thought it might be ambiguous. I thought it might be... Ooh.
That's the other thing.
And I would have
preferred something a bit more ambiguous. Also, I would have liked it if they were a little bit too late and everything was still carrying on, and we didn't know whether they were just too late, because obviously they waited a long time to kill Jonathan Groff. It just them to come out and go, yep, everything's got better all of a sudden, and yep, oh, we haven't had anyone die in an hour. Yeah, I don't think you'd be doing a press conference just yet.
No, and she looked very well made up for someone who's clearly been looking after sick kids for a while. Yeah, and the planes are now all right.
No planes have fallen for an hour.
Yeah, and everything's okay now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
It just seemed a little... And of course, this is part of the problem with M. Night Shyamalan. I'm waiting for a twist.
Yeah.
And that is on him.
Yeah.
It's partly on me, but it's also on him due to how he has shoehorned them into many of his films. And I'm waiting for a post-credit sequence. I'm waiting for a thing of it turns out that someone was in the background all along.
Yeah, who was pressing go on these things, and it's just a coincidence.
But that disappointed me. But to go along for the ride, I was more than happy, and I really enjoyed it for 90% of the thing.
Agreed.
With me going, I wish they made that choice at the end.
Yeah, same. And just a little bit of ambiguity. I think they could have left it with them driving off, without us having that scene where we see the TV saying, oh, everything's fine now. Yeah. I think if we just left it at, well, we'll never know whether...
When there is a major incident happening on TV, they don't tend to go, oh, well, we've not had anything for a little while. God, things look to be calming down now.
Yeah.
That's not the reference that they give these events. They report
the death toll and they say how awful the consequences are. They don't do this happy sort of well, everything seems to be all right now.
Yeah. And it was all Jonathan Groff.
Yeah.
King George did it again.
I know. He's so good, isn't he? And I think he played it perfectly here against his partner as well. Yes. I thought they made a really, really good pairing and really believable that they would be together and that they'd created this really beautiful family and that they had different traits and different ideas of, you know, what they liked and what they disliked, and that lovely scene about, well, you've got a bit of a temper and you're really like, what he said about Jonathan Groff being really like uptight and everything. I was like, oh, this is amazing. Yeah, I just really enjoyed it.
What was the point of Redmond being the person who attacked them?
I think it was to give a sense of ambiguity, because if he had some connection to them in some way, that would lead you to believe that actually they were being targeted.
So it's a red herring.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. And I think...
that was my thought. I didn't know if I was missing anything.
And it clearly was him, wasn't it? Because they found the... you know, it wasn't wasn't ambiguous in that sense as well. And maybe a bit more made out of that, because I really like the bits where the people who had the vision started to doubt themselves. I really loved that sort of like, well, God, you know, what if he isn't? We've only just met each other, blah, blah, blah. I really loved that, and I wish a little bit more of that had come in. But then it probably would have been a lot longer, the film, and it was perfect length, yeah. Right, let's finish.
Right, Happy Valley.
Happy Valley is upon me.
Well, like I said, thanks a lot for listening. And we promise we'll be back sooner this time. Like I say, I've got some Oscar films to get through. So
we're back at this time when? Back at this time.
Back at this time.
Yeah, back at this time.
Yeah, back at this time. Back at this time of
we'll be back at some point.
It's not actually scheduled and something you can listen to on demand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well. Right. Well, thanks a lot, guys.
Bye.
Bye.